Good evening and welcome to the regular board meeting of Carpinteria Unified School District Board of Trustees. It is January 28th. We are at City Hall. And I'm just going to go over our procedure for public comments so it's clear for everybody. In a regular board meeting, the public is welcome to comment on any agenda item or non-agenda item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Public comments may be bundled together at the beginning of each alphabetical section of the agenda. The board president usually limits individual comments to 3 minutes, but may modify the time limit at his or her discretion in order to assure that the board takes care of district business. Please note that agenda items with the agreement of the board may be addressed in a sequence different than what is specified below. Please remember that the governing board meetings are a business meeting of the board held in public, and although public participation is encouraged, it is not the public's meeting. Public speakers have a right to their own opinions. The board requests that members of the public present their comments in a factual, respectful, and civil manner that models how we expect our students to participate in the democratic process. The board is not responsible for the content of statements made during public comment. In a special board meeting, public comments shall be limited to only those items posted on the agenda. With that, we are going to begin with the flag salute. Please rise. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have our closed session report. Information was exchanged, no action was taken. We now have time for public comment on items not on this agenda. At this time, members of the public are welcome to come and step up and offer public comment for items that are not reflected within today's agenda. Please make sure the green light is on this guy. Yep. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Good. All right. Superintendent Rigby, good evening, and President Diamond and board members. My name is John Fowler, and I'm a teacher at Carpinteria Middle School. I want to start by commending and thanking you for appointing Dr. Jamie Pursoon as our school principal. Her keen observational skills and willingness to listen and to recognize the needs of students has been a refreshing and promising reset. The decisiveness with which Dr. Pursoon has addressed issues like dress code and cell phone use has been much appreciated by teachers and staff. I also wish to call your attention to this ironic turn of the tide. From my optic, our union president, Mr. Hotchner, while still a teacher at CMS, took a lot of heat for trying to address these same exact issues. He represented the voices of many of us, frustrated with the lack of clarity and inconsistency at the time. His suggestions back then were remarkably similar to the improvements we see under Dr. Pursoon. For the record, I always believed the set of allegations that led to the removal of Mr. Hotchner from the classroom were retaliatory and unjust. Seeing those allegations continue to be touted as proven fact in the Coastal View, when an administrative law judge had just concluded otherwise, made me sick to my stomach. Witnessing over the years now the Hotchner family carry on as they do, I commend their service to their community and especially their love and support for one another. I appreciate the enormous sacrifice of time and energy with which our president, Mr. Hotchner, continues to advocate on behalf of educators and support staff. For the sake of the CUSD community, I urge you to help end this impasse and engage with cause leadership in addressing together the urgent issues before us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so contract negotiations between employees and CUSD management remain at impasse. On January 14th, the district once again demonstrated its lack of commitment to an agreement by refusing to participate in the scheduled mediation session. Employees and their elected employee leaders are realistic, and they remain focused. We remain focused on reaching a reasonable agreement, which, one, includes the most basic safety improvements for our employees, students, and their families. Two, defends employee health care. Three, secures meaningful salary increases with the intent of relieving economic pressure associated with the cost of living, which has risen 20 to 23% in the last 2 years and threatens to further destabilize the workforce. And four, and importantly, we seek an agreement that includes contingencies that would minimize conflict, future conflict, by sharing the impact of future economic uncertainties that would affect both employees and the district's budget. Rather than argue further future revenues, we continue to promote agreements that have employees and district leaders rowing in the same direction over district finances. On January 14th, employee representatives formally rejected the district's most recent proposal, which falls significantly below the expectations of employees. Despite the public statements by Board President Diamond and Schaefer suggesting substantial salary increases for employees, these claims are entirely inaccurate. Throughout the 19-month bargaining process, while misleading the public by suggesting they once offered a multi-year agreement amount of 17%, CUSD's current best offer has been a meager 2% for certificated and 2.5% for classified. This is particularly concerning given the district administrators have received multiple raises totaling 10 to 12% during the same period. CUSD, despite its relatively strong financial position, continues to prioritize administrative spending while underfunding essential employee positions. This further evidenced by the recent audit that revealed that the district underpaid employees by a staggering $3.5 million, a clear violation of the state education code. Maybe that's where you got that mythical 17% proposal that employees never received, because $3.5 million deficiency, once uncovered, we realize that that's equivalent to a 17% pay increase for all district employees. This ongoing impasse, coupled with the district's history of undermining employee rights and engaging in bad faith bargaining tactics, creates a serious threat to the delivery and quality of education for our students. Union leadership continues to do all we can to avoid a general strike. Such a scenario would be disruptive to the delivery of educational services, to student learning, and to the families we serve. So we continue to urge the community, demand fair compensation for all CUSD employees, inform the district board about the critical role that well-compensated employees play in student success.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Mr. Delgado will translate. Thank you.
Thank you, Rogelio Delgado, Carpinteria. Recent. This is briefly that translation. Los empleados y sus líderes permanecen enfocados en un acuerdo que incluye seguridad en mejoras para empleados, estudiantes y sus familias. También se enfocan en aumentos, en salarios para los maestros. Lo que se pide aquí es un acuerdo con contingencias que aseguren un futuro. El distrito escolar, pese a estar estable financieramente, siguen rechazando acuerdos. El sindicato y sus líderes tratan de evitar la huelga. Ahorita se está en un punto muerto y si no hay ningún acuerdo, es lo que sigue, una huelga. Algo que el sindicato y sus líderes no lo desean, pero lo harán en caso necesario. Urgimos a la comunidad a exigir compensación justa para los empleados del distrito, que son los empleados, los maestros, nada más y nada menos que un salario justo. That's the end of the translation. Now, I would like to make my own public comment, not on the agenda. Okay. This is what we all are seeing currently. I mentioned before that the district is basically just waiting for a buyer's market. That's not coming. Why is that? Because sellers are not selling and buyers are not buying. And why is that? I don't blame any one of them. And this is what affects our budget. During the first interim report, said that the district was getting 5% on property taxes instead of 7%. I'm gonna tell you why. Basically, the real estate market goes in cycles. 10 years, seller's market. 10 years, buyer's market. What are we having right now? 13 years with a seller's market. I don't blame the sellers for not selling, holding on to their properties, because the longer that they wait, the more money that they're getting. Look at the property values, 2019, 2020. It has almost doubled up. There's no need to refinance. There is no need to sell. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't sell. I own a condo. I won't sell it. If I do, it will be in 3 years. Why is that? Because that's why there is this restless cycle, up and down. Same thing with the stock market. 10 years up, 10 years down, 13 years up, up, up. Check your retirement account. The last 4 years, without even contributing a single dollar. So let's say they have $1 million. Just check it right now. $1.5 million, without doing anything at all. So that's why there's no movement on real estate. And look at the interest rates right now. 7%, 7.14%, 3 years fixed. No, look at the prices right now. No, that's why I'm advising people, do not buy right now. When I make money, wait for the buyer's market. Otherwise, you'll be underwater. So the district needs to take precautions on what to do. Do not overspend, basically. That's what I do not overspend. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment for items not on the agenda. Please feel free to step up.
Rachel Heyman, local. And I love Carpinteria School District. You guys are amazing and you do a lot. But as a fellow teacher myself, I don't know if you understand the impact of your message that you're sending. When you only say 2% to these teachers, you're devaluing the kids in our district, that you don't care that their teachers are there to give them a good education. You don't care that we're the mothers, the nurses, the snack providers, the little doctors, the huggers, the kissers of these kids who need us, especially with what's going on in the world. When you give admin 5% raise over the teachers, you're saying, we value paperwork, we value your non-student contact time. When you only give the teachers a 2% raise and you don't value their 100% student contact time with those kids from the day beginning to the day ending, plus the countless hours they spend coaching parents on how to be better with their kids, you're devaluing our whole community, our future leaders. I urge you to sit down with this district's group of professionals and really carve it out. Why is admin, who does barely any student contact time, except typically discipline or a walkthrough in a classroom, why are they getting so much money when they don't directly impact the reading, the math, the Band-Aids that need to be provided, that hug at the end of the day because they're going home to a situation where these families don't know what's coming next? You need to value our educators. I work in another district. I want to work here so bad, but you can't afford me, and I can't afford to work in this district and live in this city. You're devaluing our educators, our professionally trained teachers who make 1,000 decisions in 1 minute when the kid walks in the door without his lunch and is having a crying fit on the floor, when the 8th grader who's going through mental crisis can't focus on anything in front of them, when those high schoolers are dealing with peer pressure, social, emotional, sexual, whatever. You're devaluing your teachers. These are the guys who work for you, not for you, for the community, for the kids. What about your kids? Why are they going to stay for a 2% raise? The COLA last year was 3%. You guys can't even live on that. If your businesses don't make a whatever, you can't live on that. How can you expect our educators to work hard for us in our community if you don't show that you care by paying them at least the COLA and taking admin a step back, who's not in the classroom all the time? Those teachers are our frontline Marines. Please reconsider.
Thank you. Any further public comment for items not on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we are going to move on to approval of the minutes of the meeting of January 14th. We're going to take public comment on approval of the minutes.
Alrighty, thank you. So at minute 131:40, item F, Ms. Diamond was correct. Let the minutes show that legal fees in the warrants are not only taxpayer dollars spent on illegal attacks against elected union leadership. As she said, they also can be, quote, the legal fees for personnel. Of course, Ms. Diamond failed to specify further, so we will. Let the minutes show that the additional expenditures she referred to are associated with the district's attempts to defend its disciplinary attacks on 4 other employees as well, 2 of whom were fired shortly after they began working with the union directly, and 2 more who have endured the district's disciplinary attacks when they, under oath, provided testimony that led to the district being found guilty, Ms. Rigby, of unfair labor practices, retaliation, and discrimination against union leadership. At minute 131:40, Ms. Diamond was correct again. She just left out the most damning information. At item E, minute 26:10, a longtime district attorney provided a Brown Act presentation. However, instead of providing actual provisions from the Brown Act, which would have been much more clear, the well-paid attorney provided interpretations that satisfied the whims of district officials, but not the provisions of the Brown Act itself. Let the minutes show that after the public comments on agenda item E, the district's attorney acknowledged that he provides, quote, a rendition of what the law requires, not the law itself. Renditions that include interpretations like this quote, a California Supreme Court case has held that written board member communications must be turned over, including from private emails and texts. The takeaway from this is not to put anything in email that you would not want to read about in the newspaper. This Brown Act presentation demonstrated CUSD's historic practice of paying its attorneys to tell district officials what they want to hear, however inaccurate. Interpretations that were then broadcast by the CUSD's mouthpiece, the Coastal U News, further misleading the community on matters of district governance. The solicitation of legal advice, like that contained in item E's Brown Act presentation, is an example of the kind of legal interpretation that, in no small part, explains why the CUSD is currently inundated with the types of legal expenses found in the warrants on January 14th, 10 times the expenses when you arrived, Ms. Rigby, to include 4 arbitrations after the district attorney's interpretations of the law had no legal justification when we started filing our grievances on these, or legal services related to the 1970s sexual abuse cases based on highly questionable interpretations of the law during those years. Or CUSD's attempt to defend Ms. Rigby's decision to illegally punish and fire a highly ethical instructional aide who exposed highly unethical behaviors by Aliso Principal Gallardo, who, by the way, ended up fired for the very things that were being reported.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Any further public comment on approval of the minutes of January 14th?
Yes, this is Jay Hodges' translation of approval of the minutes. Aprobación de los minutos. Minuto 1 con 31 segundos. Ms. Diamond tuvo razón que los minutos muestren que los gastos legales no solamente se usan en ataques ilegales contra el liderazgo del sindicato, sino también para costos administrativos. Por supuesto, ella no especificó más. Además, que los minutos muestren que los gastos adicionales incluyeron la defensa de ataques contra 4 empleados que se unieron al sindicato. 2 de ellos fueron despedidos. Categoría E, minuto 26. El abogado del distrito, bien pagado, presentó todo a favor del distrito, no las provisiones del Brown Act del distrito. El periódico hizo segunda al distrito, al abogado, porque publicó todo a favor del distrito. En esta categoría E está la razón del por qué el distrito está inundado con gastos legales, incluyendo 4 arbitrajes, debido a que el fiscal en el 2024 declaró que el distrito no tenía legalidad para sus acciones. Está también el dinero gastado por el distrito en defender a la exdirectora de la primaria, Aliso, que al final, Gallardo, que al final fue despedida. Y claro, el reconocimiento de la presidenta en los minutos de gastos legales. En F1, gastos ilegales determinados por cuerpos judiciales, porque no fue sino hasta que se gastaron $3.5 millones se aceptó. El caso de Ms. Haynes, ella fue designada directora de Educación Especial cuando el director renunció. La presentación de esta noche contrasta con los comentarios de los maestros que hicieron el 17 de diciembre de 2024. Ahora, 13 maestros de educación especial al principio del año escolar renunciaron. Y una cita general, cito, no sentí el apoyo del distrito. Tengo 30 años trabajando y la forma de dirigir el distrito es lo peor que he experimentado. Se cierra la cita. Ahora, vean la tabla de gastos y salarios de maestros en el distrito. Aunque somos un distrito básico, robusto, no se justifican los gastos ni los
Your
sueldos
time is
bajos.
up.
Thank you. Now, I got my own public comment on the approval of the minutes.
That's fine if you'd like to, have your own public comment. I'm just,
Yes, thank you. 2021, Correct Price was here. I watched it on TV. He talked about the Brown Act. He explained it in a lot of detail. 2025, Correct Price was back. This is how I'm impressed of his presentation. Yes, actually, he favored both ways. He clarified that anyone wants a translation, that he's required to have it, 3 minutes. That's something that was in question. He clarified that translates that a public speaker has the right to a translation. He also explained that a translation is a translation of someone's public comment, and at the same time, that translator has the right, it's on the Brown Act, to express his own public comment on top of that. That's good, because he clarified that to all of you, because there was some question about that, mainly on December 17 board meeting. Now, November, I emailed a letter to the Coastal View, November, about the Brown Act. A fair letter. Not 100% my side, not 100% the district side. Fair letter, as it is. They got it. Waited for a week, two. As of today, they haven't published it. Wonder why? It was like 50-50 your way. Like, for example, yes, if you say 3 minutes is the maximum time allowed, that's fine. 3 minutes, that's correct. It was 50-50. Wasn't published. I'm gonna email it again, including Greg Price's presentation.
Thank you.
Let's see what happens.
Your time
Thank
is
you.
up. Any further comment on approval of the minutes of January 14th? Okay. May I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes. I'll second.
Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are on C5, approval of the agenda and consent agenda. And before we move on, I'm just going to note that E3 has been pulled. There will not be a presentation from the Warrior Pool Foundation tonight. So the motion, when it comes, will reflect that pulling of E3. Other than that, public comment for approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
So the consent agenda, as with the rest of the board meeting, is governed by the Brown Act, which is designed to prevent the advancement of public business without transparency. It is designed to provide members of the community an opportunity to more thoroughly consider the details associated with matters of district business before those matters are quickly processed through the consent agenda en masse. Although the consent agenda allows the district to effectively process items that do not require discussion or community input, this responsibility, as Mr. Price said, must be balanced with the goals of transparency and the district's obligations to ensure that the community is provided a thorough opportunity to understand and review the consent agenda item. To do otherwise obscures debate, and it prevents dissenting viewpoints and/or concerns from being placed on the public record. In violation of the Brown Act, CUSD routinely places items on the consent agenda that are neither routine nor have they been brought before the public at any previous meeting. Therefore, the union requests at the very least that CUSD develop a transparent mechanism for community members to prompt, or at the very least formally request an item be removed from the consent agenda for further consideration. Setting aside our concerns associated with the district's misinterpretation of Brown Act obligations, employees support items 1, 2, and 5. We look forward to the presentation associated with number 3 that has been tabled. Although employees support the concept of item 4, the renewal of the youth mentor collaboration between CUSD and Carp Skate Foundation, we have a lot of outstanding questions that are not answered in the attached paperwork, and we feel like those should probably be answered before an approval is provided. It's an awesome program from everything we've seen, but there are still quite a few questions. For example, Whereas the program provides students the opportunity for PE credits via independent PE hours, how does the program specifically align with and satisfy the state PE standards for grades 6, 7, 8? Among other benefits, the program cites an after-school program leveraging a visual arts-based curriculum to facilitate social and emotional growth, build capacity for creative self-expression and creative problem-solving. Where can we find the specifics of that curriculum, if it's a curriculum, to better understand some of that that the program promises? The program cites tutoring and academic accountability, and educators are interested to know how more specifically will the program be working with educators to facilitate tutoring and academic accountability. How has the district confirmed the eligibility and credentials of those working with district students? Have these individuals been live scanned? Has the district conducted routine background checks that it would for those working with district students on CUSD properties? This is a great guy right here. We are not giving you a hard time, I promise. But we're interested in some of those details, and it doesn't seem like we've gotten answers to them yet. Lastly, the program was up and running through the autumn semester of 2024, and what
Thank
kind of
you. Your
data is
time
being
is up.
collected on its efficacy. Thank you.
Any further public comment on approval of the agenda and consent agenda?
Hello, Peter Bonding, Carpinteria Escape Foundation. Asking all the pertinent questions there. It's very important. We care deeply about these students, and we want them in the hands of all the most, appropriate people. So, totally understand. I'm happy to answer as many of those questions now as need be, or I'm happy to invite anyone to come by the nonprofit headquarters, check out what we do. I'm happy to email anybody my curriculum, which it is a curriculum. I was a full-time classroom teacher for over 15 years, including in the Carpinteria Unified School District and at Kate School and at public and private institutions in San Francisco and Oakland, where I received my California State teaching credential at San Francisco State University. Very proud to be a teacher. I've been working with kids for a long time. Was live scanned many years ago. I'm here tonight just to give you an update on the PUSH project. I know the budget's on the agenda for tonight. Last semester we were over enrolled by double, so on there it says 14 students at the price you see. I just charged the school district that flat fee for the program no matter what. This semester I have 36 kids on my roster. Today there was pushing 20 kids in that space. I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'm not in the business of turning kids away. So what we do in the face of over-enrollment is we maintain flexibility and we diversify our curriculum. So whereas we give a little here in order to take a little bit from here and make sure everyone has an appropriate experience. We've got students that range across the board of the socioeconomic spectrum, and we make sure those kids, they all have what they need individually. I've increased my adult presence in that space, and we work closely with Carpinteria Middle School leadership to ensure the academic accountability piece of it, and the social emotional growth component, which is very important. And like I said, I'm happy to walk anyone through the curriculum and how we meet our goals and objectives as they pertain to the school district's goals and objectives. We very much work in line with each other, and I take great pride in towing the party line, so to speak. I want to support the school district in what they do in our community, and thus far, it's been a great collaborative effort, and I get a lot of positive reviews from administrators and staff at the middle school campus. And so from our end, it feels very positive. It feels very good. We've got a lot of great momentum
Peter.
moving forward. So I appreciate all your support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Your time is up. Thank you. Okay. And seeing no further public comment. Any questions from the board? I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda while pulling item E3, the Warrior Pool Foundation presentation, from the agenda.
All right, I'll second that.
Discussion? Roll call.
Eric?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
And I'm aye.
Okay. And now moving on to E, public interest reports and presentations. We will now take public comment on anything within E.
Could you please, before speaking, could you please explain what just happened with the way speaker minutes are working for this item E? Typically, item E, if I recall, is there's an opportunity for speakers to speak after, say, for example, the student
So-
representative, after the superintendent, after each item in E. Is that still preserved?
So as I read at the beginning of the meeting, that public comments will be bundled together at the beginning of each alphabetical section of the agenda.
Okay. Then, so does that mean bundled together as in still 3 minutes for each of the letters within, or each of the numbers under
You have 3
item E?
minutes to speak to items under E.
Oh, to all items. So you're reducing the amount of time that speakers can comment on items under item E. Is that correct?
What we are doing is you have 3 minutes to comment on E.
So you are reducing the amount of time. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I'm
Time can
picking
begin
the
now.
right
Your time
comments.
is going to begin now.
Okay, you are reducing the time. Thank you. So employee leadership shares the superintendent's appreciation for our library media tech specialists. They are fabulous, and they're doing an outsized job for the amount of resources they're provided. Regarding the first interim financial report, Ms. Rigby reported that SB CEO has positively certified the CUSD's first interim financial report. This means that SB County has confirmed that the state is meeting its minimum, its mandated 3% reserves 3 years out. The positive certification does not confirm that CUSD is investing these tax dollars appropriately, though. That is better examined through the CUSD's annual audit, where accounting strategies like overestimating expenditures and underestimating revenues are more closely examined. In December 2024, when the audit was last conducted, it revealed that the district failed to make even the minimum salary investment in district employees as required by Ed Code. SBCEO was not looking at this when it certified the first interim financial report, nor did the first report include any mention that CUSD underpaid the $3,522,000, a deficiency in employee compensation equivalent to a 17% pay increase for all district employees. In regard to the practice of overestimating expenditures and underestimating revenues, can Superintendent Rigby clarify whether the district included the revenues associated with the sale of the Baylord property in the first interim report? Or where will we find that approximately $4.5 million revenue increase in the next interim report? Were the $4.5 million included in the interim report? Let's see here. On page 11, what you would see is the district's reserves skyrocket to 16% 3 years out. Clearly, Superintendent Rigby's report is more telling for what is not included than what is included. Another example in Ms. Rigby's report is the first semester CMSC HS student performance, in that it's improved. She fails to mention that this is primarily the result of inflated grading practices her administration promotes. Across CUSD's secondary schools, what used to constitute a student GPA or letter grade is now entirely different. Many parents in the community may be surprised that now, under the new grading practices encouraged by Ms. Rigby, a student who gets every question wrong on a test will still receive half credit for that test. As a student, or as a result, a student must only demonstrate 20% proficiency to receive a grade of C. As another result, the district's internal metrics, student grades and GPAs, did not bear relevant when compared to student measuring tools the district cannot control. An example, Ms. Rigby reports that 74% of middle school students earned a 3.0 GPA or higher. Yet, according to the CMS SARC report released this evening in item F, only 36% of all CMS students even met the grade level at math. and only 4.69
Thank you. Your
special
time is
education
up.
students. Boy, we could go on with a few more minutes. Thank you.
Any further public comment on E? Oh,
Question. Apologies. I'm new to coming to the school board meetings, but I'm one of the representative for 4 on here. Are we?
you're going to have your own time to present. Yeah, this is just for the public comments on the items. Yeah. Okay. We are going to go ahead with our student representative report now. Angel.
Hello. My name is Angel Pineda. I'm the student representative representing Carpinteria High School. This is my report. This week, girls water polo will be hosting Winimi on Tuesday. Boys soccer will be at Malibu today as well. Boys basketball and girls soccer will host Channel Islands on Wednesday. And girls basketball and boys soccer will host Santa Paula on Thursday and Friday. Respectfully, girls water polo celebrated the class of 2025 today on this Tuesday, while boys basketball will host a pregame celebration of their seniors, cheer seniors, and warrior senior families on Thursday. Today, CHS academic counselors visited CMS to begin the course request offerings for the next school year. Future 9th grade students will have until February 13th, 2025 to submit their course request. Our special education department will host an informational night tomorrow on Wednesday for incoming 8th graders starting at 6 p.m. in the library. On Thursday, January 30th, 2025 at 6 p.m., CHS will host an informational night for incoming 9th graders. All parents and students of the class of 2029 are invited to attend this very important night. Presentations will include academic programs, exploring our diverse course offerings at Carpinteria High School, our athletics program, discover our exciting athletic programs that we all love to do, our support services, getting information on counseling, tutoring, and other necessities that they may need, and the student panel. Students will be able to hear firsthand from current high school seniors and on their various stories that they have for high school, their various paths, and what they want to do. ASB is also planning on having a rally to celebrate winter sports, which will be on Thursday, February 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Any questions for Angel from the board? Comments? Well, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our superintendent's report.
Thank you, and thanks again, Angel. Wonderful report. Good job. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to begin with some appreciation, and I'd like to recognize our library media tech specialists, Abigail Garcia at the high school, Packer Nero at the middle school, Caitlin Damron at Aliso and Summerlin, and Julie Soto at Canalino and Family School. They inspire students to become lifelong readers and learners. My next item relates to our response to immigration enforcement. Under the U.S. Constitution, all students have a right to receive an education without discrimination based on immigration status. In Plyler versus Doe, the U.S. Supreme Court recognized that undocumented immigrants are guaranteed due process and equal protection rights under the Constitution, and that children cannot be denied equal access to a public education on the basis of their immigration status. Schools must provide free public education to all students, regardless of their immigration status and regardless of their citizenship status of their parents or guardians. In 2017, the CUSD Board passed Resolution Number 17-800 in support of students in the district, which included protections from immigration authorities on campus and information confidentiality as provided by law. In 2019, Board Policy and Regulation 5145.13, Response to Immigration Enforcement, was adopted to guide school staff in providing safe learning environments for all students and responding to immigration enforcement. The next item is our first interim financial report information. Santa Barbara County Education Office has reported that CUSD's first interim financial report with a positive certification to the California Department of Education. Our next item is Fall 2025 TKK registration. So our TKK information meeting will be held on Thursday, February 20th at Canalino School. 5:15 for English session, and 6 o'clock for our Spanish session. Online registration begins on March 1st for all students who will be 5 years old on or before September 1st for kindergarten, and for all students who are currently 4 years old and will have their 5th birthday by September 1st, 2026 for our transitional kindergarten program. CMS Art and AHA. CMS Art students are led by our CMS Art teacher, Ryan Ethington, and in collaboration with AHA, staff have created beautiful artwork that is on display at the Carpinteria Art Center from January 9th to February 23rd, and the reception will be Monday, January 27th, 5:30 to 7:30. First semester high school and middle school student performance. 74% of our middle school students earned a 3.0 GPA or higher, with a school average GPA of 3.32. Last year, during first semester, the GPA average was 3.19, and only 66% of the students earned a 3.0 GPA or higher. And then at the high school, the students also improved during this first semester compared to last year. 77% of our high school students earned a GPA 3.0 or higher, with a school average of 3.64. And last year, only 67% of the high school students earned a GPA 3.0 or higher, with a school average of 3.32. This is Great Kindness Challenge Week. The California Department of Education, in partnership with the Great Kindness Challenge, encourages all schools to participate in the Great Kindness Challenge Week, January 27th to the 31st. The theme for the 14th annual week is Kindness Moves, and this global campaign is designed to promote kindness, social-emotional health, and bullying prevention in pre-K to grade 12. Our school counselors and student activity groups have organized daily activities to prompt acts of kindness. The next item refers to our School Accountability Report Cards, or SARC. Every school in California is required by state law to publish a school accountability report card by February 1st. The SARC contains information about the condition and performance of each California public school. Additionally, all local districts are required to prepare a local control and accountability plan, the LCAP, which describes how they intend to meet annual school-specific goals for all students, with specific activities to address state and local priorities. Data reported in an LCAP is the same data that was reported in the SARC data. The CUSD accountability report cards are posted on the district website at www.cusd.net. And I remind you that those report cards, that information is a year old, so that information is not current information, it's the last school year information. And our last item is Measure U. The new Catalina Learning Center is now open for students and staff. Plans are being developed for the removal of the portables and the new landscaping during summer. The new TKK building project at Aliso has been registered with DSA, and the completed application for the Coastal Development Permit and Plan was all submitted to the City of Carpinteria. And last week, soil samples were collected for testing at the laboratory. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? I just have one clarifying question because it was brought up. So in regards to the first interim Baylord, the sale of Baylord wasn't final beforehand, correct? And so that wouldn't reflect, but even still, it's restricted to Measure U, the funds from that?
Yes, the funds are reported in the Measure U funding.
It's restricted to Measure
Yes.
U funding, not general? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And now we are going to move on to the Clean Coalition Scale Microgrids presentation. Thank you so much.
Hello. And yeah, one point of clarification I just wanted to bring up before I jump into this. Wide-eyed am representing Scale Microgrids. We are a different entity than Clean Coalition. We do work with them on initiatives, but we are a for-profit business. And my presentation was developed from Scale Microgrids, just as a point of clarification.
Thank you
I
for
did
clarifying.
CC Craig Lewis on the email, but just wanted to clarify. Can everyone hear me okay, by the way?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so can hop into this too. Just to refresh for everyone, we met with a few of you all last year. Scale Microgrids is a solar and battery installer and developer. We focus on commercial and industrial facilities to pair solar and battery solutions to increase clean energy, resilient energy, and cost effectiveness. So that's our overall. Oh, will this be the? Oh. Oh, awesome. I was going to ask. Great. And I will forewarn here, these slides are a little stale as far as we looked at these in October. And since then, we've had a federal election, which changes some of our opportunities as a company as we do focus on grants and other incentives. So I guess to kind of cut to the chase here, we looked at a number of these opportunities last year with you all, or potential opportunities within the community. We are looking at a number of sites within Santa Barbara County to do these opportunities, and we look at economy of scale. If we can get more opportunities involved, we can then amass more grant opportunities. I will say that we are now, as we move into 2025, the pool is looking smaller, and one thing as a company we're looking at right now is how we can make that all work, and what opportunities will exist in the new year. I guess to kind of hop ahead here, this is what we were looking at last year with the economics of doing a solar and battery microgrid at Carpinteria High School. Again, I think these numbers are a little stale as far as what the opportunity and tax incentives would be. So I guess to kind of cut to the chase, unfortunately, we do not necessarily see an opportunity economics-wise to develop this at the current moment. We definitely are working within the community and would love to maintain a friendly relationship if opportunities do arise. But as we spent time on this last year, we wanted to get back to you all with a conclusive answer as to what our analysis looked like. With that, I'll open this up to questions.
Thank you. It's really unfortunate that funding has gone the way it has, that it didn't work out last year with the grant application, and that the future of funding opportunities is getting smaller, because there's a lot of reasons why this could be really beneficial, from just doing the right thing for our environment, but also the educational opportunities for curriculum for our high school students to learn about solar and microgrids and power. And it's very unfortunate that there really isn't a path right now.
Yeah.
So
And I guess I will say we are very optimistic as an organization. We are very much scrambling and looking for opportunities. Our company, our largest market is California, so we really focus on these communities, and we are working within the county as well. So we'd definitely like to maintain relationships here and see if there's potential opportunity, but didn't want to go on too much of a sales pitch here as far as, hey, we don't want to.
no, I appreciate it. And you guys put in a lot of work to the presentation that you gave to our work group or ad hoc committee a while back when you first were building everything to submit for the grant. And so I appreciate the time and effort that your team did for that.
I just curious if that PPA price that's just generation. Was that just be a generation credit, or is that a blended distribution, demand, and generation?
So that price, it acts as, so the system itself would be a solar and battery solution, but that payment is coming off of, and where these numbers are coming off of is the production from the solar, which it's a little bit of a nuance with the battery component where it's kind of dualed in there, or it's priced accordingly based on our capital expenses, but then it basically you would all only be paying for the production of the solar, is how the contract kind of breaks down.
So there's still distribution and demand in the bill generally, from like Edison, from the utility.
So we would be kind of the middleman of that per se. As far as like the prices up on the board there, that's how it would kind of break down as far as the electrical savings, and then there would be a PPA cost as well. So yes, you guys would still be connected to the grid and have those costs, but it would be what we are presenting here
It would be
is
offset by this 23 cents.
yeah,
a
it's
kilowatt.
offset.
Yeah, yeah. But there'd still be a Edison bill. And
Yes. Yeah.
Because what I've noticed with my systems is that that we end up with the generation costs really haven't escalated as much as the demand and distribution has. And I just was curious. I mean, I know it really doesn't pencil out right now, but I'm just curious if that's factored into your calculations as well.
Yeah, so it is factored into our calculations with the assumption of, and basically what the system would look to do is really reduce y'all's demand on the grid of how much you're taking in, because the solar and battery would support the load profile that you all have. So it would reduce that demand and therefore the amount of distribution charges as well. So that's kind of where it's going. It is factored in, like we do have current SoCal Edison data as far as the pricing of it and how that's then factored, and we make assumptions as well as where we see the utility rates going. So that is all factored in, and like the current day rates are in this analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they still there's no aggregation, correct? Allowed like between sites.
No, not currently. Hopefully one day we'll see.
Okay. Any further comments from the board? Thank you so much for coming. I
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. And I just want to, I apologize. I overstepped. I need to circle back real quick to the superintendent's report, and I just want to point out my appreciation for district staff, for teachers, for the leadership of really being very clear with each other in light of the executive order as it pertains to ICE being able to come to campuses. I had the opportunity to meet with one of the ELAC groups the week before that took place, and this is something that I know is on the hearts and minds of our community at large, but unduly so on our kids. And I know that our counselors have been meeting with kids with students who this is a burden for them. They are concerned, and they're helping get them the supports they need. And I want to thank everybody, because this is, as a community, this is something we really need to, in my personal opinion, stick together arm in arm. Our kids are not up for grabs, and so thank you for reaffirming that, and thank you to the board previous to when I was on it for passing the resolution that was already in place with the policies and procedures to ensure the safety of our kids in light of situations like this. So I just needed to put that out. Thank you. And public comment. No, that was public comment for E. All public comment on any items in E, as clarified earlier. I asked for public comment on all items under E. And that was clarified what that meant, we're taking all public comment at once at the beginning of each agenda. So we are going to now move on to our special education report. Thank you. With Ms. Hines.
Hello. This is my first time presenting to you from this position, so I'm excited to do that. I just wanted to start by telling you I am really proud of our special education department. We do an amazing job in this district for all of our students, especially those who require more support. And I'm very aware special education is expensive. It's expensive across the country, it's expensive across the state. and we do a really good job with the money we spend, and we get really good value for our money. So I'm excited to share that with you tonight. There's a couple of trends that are going on in special education. We are seeing a rise in the prevalence of autism in 2023. When we look at the rates of autism diagnosis amongst 8-year-olds, there were 1 in 36 students, whereas in 2018 it was 1 in 44. This has been rising over time. When looking at data over time, what we actually think is there's not probably more people with autism. It's just we're diagnosing it at higher rates. And I'll talk a little bit about what the impact of rising rates of autism mean for special education. The other thing, one other thing that we're working on is improving our inclusive practices. So I know when I was in school, special education was a trailer out in the back corner of the yard. That is not what special education in 2025 looks like, hopefully in any school in America. It certainly is not what special education looks like in Carpinteria Unified School District. Our students with IEPs are integrated into every classroom in every campus every single day. What support that a student receives is determined by their IEP team and is a decision that's made with parents and families, as well as special education professionals in order to serve the needs of students with an emphasis on inclusionary practices. We also see the importance of early intervention, and this is especially relevant right now in our sort of post-COVID era. We're seeing an increasing number of very young children who have been negatively impacted by reduced access to early childhood services, language delays due to wearing masks, and lack of access to preschools when they were in their formative years. So we're seeing that as a major trend as we're trying to reverse that and making sure we're intervening really early with those kiddos and working on those skills so that they are able to graduate out of our special education programs into just the general education services that are offered to all students. And then the last really big trend we're seeing is an increased demand for mental health services across the spectrum. I don't think it's a surprise that we're seeing a youth mental health crisis in our country. And so the rising social emotional needs coupled with behavioral needs are going to be a common thread that we see as we work through this presentation today. I wanted to start by talking about who are our students. So I pulled this data last Thursday, and we had exactly 350 students with IEPs across the district, across every school site. So we have preschoolers. Our preschool program is housed at the CCP at Maine sites with Carpinteria Children's Project. We have a classroom there. Aliso, Catalino, and Family School, Summerland, middle school, high school. We have a SEALS program, which is our post-secondary program. Those are students who have completed our high school program and are still eligible for special education services. Those are usually life skills that are preparing them for further programs beyond that and supporting them throughout their continuum. And then other placements, we have 10 students at sites outside of our district. So I know I saw Mr. Serger's report last year, and he talked a lot about the IDEA and about the Americans with Disabilities Act. And one of the things he did talk about when he presented to you last year was the 13 categories of eligibility under IDEA, or the law that governs special education services. And we have students with a primary disability in 9 of those categories. We actually have 11 categories represented across our district. The 2 where we don't are deaf blindness and traumatic brain injury. Most of our students, what we see is pretty widespread specific learning disabilities. It's a very broad term. I spend a lot of time explaining what some of these terms mean to families because it's a pretty generic term, but it's a broad category that includes things like dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia, or a processing disorder that's coupled with the way that a student learns information. And it may mean that a student needs additional support in order to learn what their peers are learning in their general education classrooms. Speech or language impairment is a little over 20% of our population. And for our students whose primary eligibility is speech or language impairment, almost all of those students are third grade and under. So this is a big population of our young students. Other health impairment is another really broad term, and it can encompass many, many, many things. That category can include a student who has diabetes or a student who is on dialysis. But the most common thing that we see under other health impairment is students who have attention or executive functioning disorders like ADHD. Autism is about 14% of our population, and that is a growing number. So we're seeing more students eligible under autism than ever before, followed by emotional disability, which again is like those two are the fastest rising categories for eligibility across the country and in our district. Multiple disabilities are students who have areas of need in multiple areas. I skipped over intellectual disability. We have about 5%, or 1 in 20 of our students with IEPs have an intellectual disability. Deaf, hard of hearing is a very infrequent eligibility within our district, and then orthopedic impairment is also, again, a very small representation within our district. Now, how we serve students, and the language that's used here has changed over time, and actually fairly recently. You may be more familiar, our Extensive Support Needs Program used to be called by the state of California MOD Severe Disabilities. That change of language is really aimed at more accurately describing our students and more accurately describing the services we provide to them. So our Extensive Support Needs Program is generally delivered in self-contained classrooms. We have classrooms at our preschool, Catalino, the middle school, the high school, and then at Pupil Services and our SEALS program. And those are led by a special education teacher with an extensive support needs or MOD severe disabilities credential. Generally, it includes a number of instructional assistants who help them carry out that program. Mild to moderate support needs is a pretty similar label for a program. Often it's been called resource classrooms. Catalino and Family School, Aliso, Summerland, the middle school and the high school all have special education teachers who serve students, and the bulk of students in those programs are students with learning disabilities or other health impairments. And then related services is a really gigantic category, and it's pretty much everything else our students need. So we have an adaptive PE teacher who helps students who are not able to fully access our physical education program, and they provide PE services through that. We have a fantastic occupational therapist who works with students at all of our school sites, working on both fine motor and, more importantly, sensory regulation skills. We work with a couple of physical therapists. We don't have, it's a small population within our district, so we contract out for 2 different fantastic physical therapists who work with students who have orthopedic impairments. Speech therapy is the most common related service that we provide, and many of our students across the district benefit from speech and language therapy. We work with Santa Barbara Unified. We have a teacher who comes in and works with our students who are deaf or hard of hearing to provide specialized instruction. Similarly, we work with our SELPA, which is the county special education program for our vision support therapist, vision support specialist who provides consultation and services to students with visual impairments. And then counseling. Counseling is a huge need within our district, and we have worked very hard to ensure that all of our students, whether they have disabilities or they are not identified with disabilities, have access to adequate counseling and therapy services to support mental health across the continuum. And then not the largest, but probably the most financially invested we are in is our behavioral supports that we provide for students. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that is and why it's growing in cost. Supporting that program, we have 5 school psychologists, 18 and a half special education teachers, 5 speech therapists, 1 adaptive PE teacher, about 55 instructional assistants. Last Last Thursday, it was exactly 55. That number does rise and fall as staff enter next the district. An occupational therapist, 11 behavior technicians, and 1 behavioral analyst. We do a lot of professional development or professional learning for our staff. Monthly, I meet with both the certificated staff and the classified staff, so that's our teachers and our speech therapists and occupational therapists, and we do topics that are specific to them. And then monthly, I meet with our classified staff, so our instructional assistants, and provide different topics that are more relevant to directly working with students in the classroom. Weekly training, particularly at our elementary sites and for our extensive support needs programs, our teachers meet with instructional assistants who work with their students weekly on case-specific learning and strategies that are most beneficial to the staff working with students. So myself, when I was a special education teacher, I would meet with the instructional assistants who work closely with me, and we would work on a lot of reading intervention strategies, a lot of behavior management strategies, skills for helping them to provide better support for students in the general education setting. I know my colleague next door, Cynthia Diaz, would provide different types of training because she worked with a different student population than I did. And then there's specialized training that comes up from time to time. So we have a list of the training that's already taken place this year, for things that we've done across the spectrum with staffing to provide ongoing development to meet our students' needs and keep current with best practices in our discipline. And then there's a lot of challenges in special education because we're seeing a rise in our student population, a rise in number of students with IEPs that is paired with declining enrollment. We're seeing a trend of less funding for special education programs while we have a rise in number of students who need access to those programs. And that's across the country. I'm not sure if you're aware, but special education has never been fully funded. It is a federal mandate. And it's considered an unfunded mandate. We were promised a lot more money, and we've never seen anywhere close to what it would cost to run the programs that are required. That's just the reality we live in. It's hard when we also see that declining student overall district-wide enrollment, meaning our revenue is declining while our population is rising. And again, that's a trend across the county and across the state of California. Staffing shortages are interesting. There are fewer people entering education in general, but in special education in particular. Special education is hard work. It's a calling. I don't know anyone who does it because they get a big paycheck. They do it because they absolutely love the work they do. And it's hard. Behavior is very challenging in classrooms across every classroom in the country is finding increasing challenges with behavior, and not everyone stays. So attracting staff is a high priority, and supporting them well so that they are able to do what they feel is most important for students is a huge goal that we have and something that I'm really proud of. But it means it's harder to find staff. The other thing that is a trend within special education is many professionals are moving away from direct hiring with districts. So instead of being employed by Carpinteria Unified School District, they may be employed through an agency, which means there are certain benefits to the employee, and there are certain things that they don't get. So when we are required to fill a vacancy with an agency staff, it's more expensive for the district. In general, my understanding is those staff members make more in their paycheck, but they're not a part of our benefits program. They are not a part of CalSTRS. And so there are trade-offs with that. We're seeing that trend particularly in our related service providers. So I'm sure you guys saw our vacancies last year. We tried to direct hire speech therapists all year long, and we had nobody directly apply. But there's a wide range of staff available through agencies. It's always our preference to direct hire. We want to have that personal relationship with our employees, not be working through an agency, not only for costs, but also because they're our employees. And it's more expensive, so we're needing to do that. We're needing to do that, and we work really hard to direct hire, but it's a reality of where we are in special education, not just us, but everywhere in the state of California. And then the other thing, I'm going a little out of order. The number of students with complex and extensive support needs is dramatically rising, particularly behavioral costs. When we look at you guys have seen our budgets. You see how much special education costs. It's never been something that we do. We invest what it costs us to provide those services for our students, and that's something I'm really proud that we do. But behavioral costs make up a larger portion of that spend every year because behavior services are very expensive. We do that because the students need it. Not, it's not an avoidable cost. If it were, we would find another way. But when students need it as part of their IEP, that's what we do. I wanted to talk about one other thing that in our numbers, we have 350 students with IEPs and a little over 1,900 students overall, which gives us 18% of our student population are students who have IEPs. And that number has risen. Over the last 5 years, it's gone from about 14% to about 18%. That is a trend within California, particularly within Santa Barbara County. A lot of that is due to language support needs that we're seeing with our very young students, and then behavioral support needs we're seeing for students who have emotional disabilities or mental health concerns. Those are our two biggest areas where we're seeing a rise in need as well as a rise in cost. I stuck a quote in from Temple Grandin at the end, but it's on mine. And the reason why I bring that up, Temple Grandin is she's a autism advocate and often speaks in support of people with disabilities. And one of the really important things, and we do it exceptionally well, is our students are our students first. Regardless of what category they might fall in. They are general education students first. We see them that way. Our teachers see them that way. They are embedded members of our community. They are valued. They are necessary. They are important contributors to our classrooms. And having a robust, good special education program benefits every student in our district. My own children, I have one who graduated last year and a junior at Carpinteria High School, and I'm thrilled, and I know that he benefits greatly from having access to peers who have a wide range of characteristics and communication styles and behaviors, and I believe that the push towards a more integrated and more accessible classroom environment benefits all kids, regardless of whether we have them categorized this way or that way. It's really important. Thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Carolyn
I have a couple.
or comments? Yep.
No, it was great presentation, Carolyn. Thank you very much. And you're doing a fantastic job. I had a couple, and they're kind of maybe superfluous, but if we have a student with multiple disabilities, how do we categorize?
So multiple disabilities is one of those funny categories, is it has very specific criteria. Very often that's a student who has an intellectual disability. They may also have an orthopedic impairment, visual impairment, deaf, hard of hearing. They may have autism. So they would be eligible in multiple categories. When we complete an IEP, we get 2 boxes that we're able to fill out, a primary disability and a secondary disability. And oftentimes, students with complex needs might otherwise be eligible in several, 5, 6, 7 categories, and that sort of encompasses that. And then we're able to choose a secondary category for their secondary need. And that's just a way that we're able to better understand what their needs are. So as a special education teacher, if I were looking at a student whose eligibility, that helps me to understand and know that I need to dig a little deeper to understand how to better support that student.
Okay, but when we categorize them as far as total counts, do they like on page?
They would only be counted once on the.
Okay, so
yeah.
so would they go to their primary disability then? They would be categorized into their primary disability.
They would be counted as a student with multiple disabilities, but those are in general, they're in our
Oh,
extensive
multiple
support needs
disabilities. Okay, gotcha.
program.
Okay, and then I'm curious within the special ed community if diet. There's been a lot of new research on diet and microbiota in your stomach and all the whole gut brain relationship, and whether or not what's the ability of the special ed or the staff at the schools to maybe bring up topics like that are it's new research, it's cutting edge, or are we totally reliant on the Department of Ed to give us guidance for that?
I mean, we follow evidence-based practices, so I think when there is a growing body of research, I know a lot of our teachers stay current with our research in our professional development, we're going to work on that. I am aware of students within the district whose parents have them on specialized diets to help support. To help support their needs, particularly students with autism.
Well, it's autism and
ADHD.
emotional
Yeah.
things, and because I read quite a bit about that, and because this is, I think, the increase in these numbers is concerning to anybody who's involved in education. Sure. and I think it's gathered the attention of Robert Kennedy's a big advocate for changing the way we do a lot of things, diet-wise and health-wise, and that got me looking into it's part of the way we farm now, regeneratively, where you're kind of working the soil and building up the biology and letting that do the heavy lifting for you. And the same applies to I think to a lot of this advent of, or at least this escalation of a lot of these autism diagnoses and emotional problems, is a lot of kids aren't eating well. You see them in the morning and they're starting their day off with sugar, and that really is the wrong thing you should be eating in the morning. And I'm just curious if how much control we would have over that, if we have more control in the special ed department
Not really.
than we would in the
I
general
think
education.
what a student eats
Not
tends
control,
to be
but like
more.
just be able to recommend.
I work with colleagues who do talk when parents are receptive about things that might be beneficial. We talk about sleep a lot in IEP meetings. We talk about sending kids to school with a breakfast that's going to support their ability to learn during the day. So we're providing those. As far as it being a part of an IEP or individualized educational program, it's not really at this point. I do know there's research that's going on, and that may trickle in.
Could it be included in an IEP if we could back it up with research? Like recommended, like you should have more protein in your diet and less sugar.
I don't.
Things like that.
I would need to do some research
No,
as to where.
I don't want to specify what it is,
Sure.
but I'm just saying, could dietary recommendations be part of an IEP?
Yes.
You certainly can make those recommendations
Yeah.
as part of the parent
Exactly.
education
Yeah,
piece.
yeah.
But remember, the IEP is really driving the programs and services that the school district is offering.
True, but
Right.
isn't there a component of it where the parents have to sign off on it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But-
But it certainly
It
could be
really
part of
governs
parent
what we do
education.
at school.
Because I think there is a solution to not all, obviously not all these disabilities have a dietary component, but a lot of them do. And at least, from what I've been reading, I think they do. And we could maybe see improvement there. But those were my thoughts.
And I think anything that's going to support the educational access and the social and emotional health of students is something that IEP teams will talk about and add to the best of our ability.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for your presentation. The special ed program is a really important part of the district, and
Yeah, thank you.
thank you to you and your staff. It's always close to our hearts and our minds when we have discussions and budget meetings, et cetera. So
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I know, I've been coming to school board meetings for a really long time, and I remember the first time I ever saw a budget presentation, I was kind of shocked at how much special education services cost. But I realize I'm coming from a bias. I think we invest that money well. I really do.
Yeah, I just want to commend you for jumping both feet into the fire like you have, and really taking off on hitting the ground running.
Yeah,
Really,
you know
I'm
what?
proud of you.
These are my kids. People ask me like how I like it, and these are my kids. I see them at the grocery store. I'm excited to see them in town, and so I'm really glad to get to serve the children of Carpinteria.
We're really lucky. Carolyn was an excellent and is an excellent special educator in terms of instruction, and it's great that she's now providing leadership to the rest of her colleagues.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate her skills.
So I just had a few comments. Starting at the kind of the beginning and the increase we're seeing in special ed, the need for services, the diagnoses of that qualify students, and I think part of it is, yes, there is an increase, but I also think that we are in a different place than we were years ago, like you said, where we recognize it in a way that we didn't recognize things before. We see things, whereas before it was, oh, the kid's just hyper, they're just acting out. And there was also an aspect of parents not wanting, there was a stigma and people being in denial. I grew up in the children are to be seen and not heard era, and that extended into whatever needs kids had, and so ignoring the problem. And so we no longer are ignoring that. We want to work with the kids as early as possible to give them the greatest chance at a really amazing life. And so thank you for that and for what your team is doing to recognize those students early on. It's incredibly important. And I think seeing that we have 21 students in preschool.
And the bulk of those are students with what we call a speech-only IEP. So their
Okay.
only service they see our speech pathologist somewhere between 40 and 60 minutes a week in a couple of sessions. That's the majority of those
Okay.
preschoolers they're at CCP, they're at Head Start, they're at Kinderkirk, they're at Lou Grant, and we provide that service. We have 8 who are in our preschool program, our day preschool
Okay,
program.
8 in the, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And for clarifying, under speech or language impairment, mostly 3rd grade and younger.
Yes.
Let's see here, just going through my notes. The change in terminology from mod severe to extensive support needs, I believe you mentioned it. Is that a CUSD only change, or was that a?
No, that was a California
That is a California change.
And they actually changed the name of the teaching credentials.
That was going to be my follow-up, because that was the name of the teaching credential, and so is that changing as well?
Yes, the CTC, or the governing body for teaching credentials, started the transition changeover, and all programs that are producing new special education teachers are under the new credential system. So there are 3 credentials. One is extensive support needs, one is mild moderate support needs, and one is the early childhood education credential. And those are the new names, whereas the old names were early childhood education. That hasn't changed. Mild to moderate disabilities and mod severe disabilities. When they made that change, they also changed the training for teachers. So my credential that I hold in special education is mild moderate support needs, and I've always been able to work with students with autisms, work with students with traumatic brain injury or intellectual disabilities. But with the old credential, it was much more limited as to which of those categories someone with the older credential could work with. Similarly, for our Mod Severe credential to the ESN credential, those teachers couldn't work with students with learning disabilities. They would have had to have an additional credential to be able to do that. And so it gives us a lot more flexibility to adapt to the needs of the student. So because simply by their diagnosis, you can't always tell what the student's support needs are going to be. You could have a student whose primary eligibility is a learning disability, and they really need to be in a more self-contained extensive support needs classroom based on their other needs. And so the change is welcome. I know that the disability community really welcomed the change as well, because it took the emphasis off of a deficit, a disability, and put it towards a support need, which everybody needs supports of some kind. So it talks more about the service and less about the person, which has been a welcome change.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. And then under related services, you did say we were getting support from the county for vision support?
Yes. Our vision support specialist, Carrie Bernal, works for the SELPA, and she sees a handful of students across the district.
Okay.
And that saves us from not having to hire directly for those services. Same with our deaf hard of hearing teacher, Kelly O'Donnell. She actually works for Santa Barbara Unified, but through the SELPA, we work with her as well.
Okay. Thank you. And then behavior technicians, is that what we also call ABA?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, and then under professional development, just the range of what you offer and what you ensure that the staff is equipped with. I really appreciate that. And I don't know how much that's what it was, or that's what you have raised it to this.
That's what we've done this school year. So that's really this school year so far. And it really depends on the needs of our staff and the needs of our students. So we've spent a lot of time working with our instructional support staff, our instructional assistants, in helping them better navigate behavior in the classroom. We've done that. Both myself and our board-certified behavioral analysts have done training. Through that, we've had our school nurse come in, and she did training on EpiPens and seizure protocols and hypoglycemia, and is able to do a lot of training with a lot of staff so that they're feeling comfortable and confident when they're working with students in classrooms, not just students with IEPs that they're directly assigned to work with, but all students. Mackenzie, our occupational therapist, has come in and has done some training on sensory regulation, since we have a lot of need for sensory regulation, not only with students, but also with staff, to how do we better manage our emotions, how do we regulate ourselves at school. So it's been really a great year for training. I'm really proud of the work we're doing.
And then at the end, you mentioned under the challenges, a decrease in SPED funds linked to enrollment. And I just want to clarify that although we are basic aid, SPED funds are actually linked to enrollment of the
Right.
total district.
Yes.
Correct? It's unfortunately not to the enrollment of SPED students, it's to the overall enrollment?
Yes, and more importantly, it's federal funds that go to the state, and then the state disperses them based on your county enrollment. And Santa Barbara County enrollment has declined, so we get less there. And then the county has less revenue, and then they look at our enrollment and has declined, and so even the revenue is more decreased. So what's curious in our business is that our enrollments are increasing for SPED and our costs are increasing, but our revenue is decreasing.
Yeah. And that's something, my commitment, at least while I'm here, and it has been this whole time, is to harass our legislators as much as possible about that fact.
Thank you.
Congressman Carbajal starts shaking his head if he sees me, because I will immediately jump on idea and the funding, and he knows. They know, unfortunately.
And a lot of this is federal funding,
Yeah.
which is even harder.
Exactly. But I thank you for you and your staff, everybody that that creates this amazing program for our kids. And
And we really appreciate
Yeah.
the support that Diana provides and that the school board provides, because we're able to do the work we do. We're very aware of our cost and very mindful when we are asking for something, and making sure that we're using the funds that we are allocated wisely to benefit all of our students. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now moving on to F, Educational Services. If you have a comment on F, we have one agenda item under that. So F, Educational Services, please step up to the podium at this time.
Okay, so this agenda item is a stellar example of how 3 minutes of public comment on even a single item of this significance is thoroughly inadequate on items like the SARC, the Student Accountability Report Cards. There is a SARC report for each school site, and each report contains approximately 20 pages of very detailed information, including but not limited to student enrollment by grade level, teachers hired without credentials and missed assignments, availability of textbooks, school facility conditions, California physical fitness test results, data on absenteeism, suspensions and expulsions, class size distribution, and so on and so on. There's so much to be learned if the time is taken to dig into this data, which we have not really seen you do. Much of which provides very clear indicators about what is and what is not working in the CUSD. For example, data pertaining to the percentage of students meeting state math, language arts, and science standards by student groups, which are utterly abysmal, especially when compared to the distraction that the superintendent threw out about student GPAs. The SARC also contains data on expenditures per pupil and school site teacher salaries compared to state averages. Even though CUSD is a basic aid district and in the top 4% of the most robustly funded TK through 12 districts in the state, you will find that both expenditures per pupil and teacher salaries are far below state averages at every school site in the district. Aliso School, 19% expenditures per pupil, 19% below state averages, 14% below for teacher salaries. Catalino School, 27% below state average on expenditures per pupil, 19% below on teacher salaries. CMS, 13% below expenditures per pupil, 20% below for teacher salaries. CHS, 23% below expenditures per pupil, 27% below for teacher salaries. Carpinteria Family School, 44% below expenditures per pupil, 8% below for teacher salaries. Do we need to continue to remind you and the community where all that money's going? Legal fees. Yeah, legal fees. 4 years on the board for Miss Diamond, 4 years on the board for Mr. Smith, 6 years on the board for Miss Green, 2 years for Mr. Bridgeford, approximately 15 years on the board for Mr. Schaefer. Look at what you're doing to this district. And then tonight you have the nerve to restrict public comment even further because you don't like what you're hearing from the public. It is ludicrous. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further public comment. We have F1, our school's accountability report card for the 2023 and 2024 school year. The board is asked to approve the 2023-2024 schools accountability report card for Carpinteria Unified School District schools. February 1 of each year, every school in California is required by state law to publish a school accountability report card, SARC. The SARC contains information about the condition and performance of each California public school. Under local control funding formula, LCFF, all local educational agencies, LEAs, are required to prepare a local control and accountability plan, which describes how they intend to meet annual school-specific goals for all pupils, with specific activities to address state and local priorities. Additionally, data reported in an LCAP is to be consistent with data reported in the SARC. Any questions from the board? Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, and discussion.
Well, I just, most of this information we've discussed several times now in the LCAP and the goals discussion, district goals. And it, I think this is a formality, isn't it?
The data that's reflected in the SARC is a year-old data,
Yeah.
so it's 23-24 data. So it's data that we discussed last year when we were looking at the test results and the different areas of which we were improving. And you'll recall that our data was consistent with the state in terms of English language arts performance, and then math, that we were significantly higher than the average in the state. So we did talk about the goals and objectives that were going to be implemented this year based on this last year's data.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'm just looking at the attachments, trying to remember. There was something I had a comment on. Any further discussion? Okay. Okay, well, yeah. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are now moving on to G, Business Operations and Facilities. If you have comment for G, anything under Business Operations and Facilities, now is the time to make public comment. Please step up to the podium.
Rogelio Delgado, Carpinteria resident. Okay. Hablaré en español primero, luego traduciré en inglés. Por años he estado diciendo esto, que el distrito es el único responsable de tener un presupuesto saludable. Y no lo tenemos. En muchos años no lo hemos tenido. Yo estuve ahí con ustedes 4 años y siempre les preguntaba lo mismo. ¿Por qué tanto gasto? ¿Por qué gastan mucho más que lo que entra? Es ahí donde está el déficit. Estos costos, exceso de costos administrativos y legales, es la causa de ello. Por eso hay siempre un déficit. No importa si hay 15, 20% de reservas. De todos modos se va. ¿Dónde? En los costos legales. Millones se han gastado en ello. Y millones más van a venir. Y ese no es dinero. Ese es dinero nuestro. Ustedes recortan esos gastos legales, demandas legales, y eso se convierte ya en un presupuesto saludable. Es lo que todos queremos, la comunidad. ¿Ustedes o no? Having a healthy budget, you're responsible for having one. But the excess of spending on legal fees is a cause for every year having the same discussion about there's not enough money. There should be money. You're getting it. Taxpayers pay that. But I have mentioned it to you thousands of times for years. Years comes and years go, and I'll repeat the same message to you, hoping that one day you get it. Stop overspending on legal fees, on lawsuits. Because if you sue someone or anyone and you lose, and if you do it again and again and you lose, that's not your money to spend. That's our money. I asked you when I was there, if you were supposed to pay $5,000, $10,000 for each claim, you wouldn't do it. Thank you.
Was that, sorry, Mr. Delgado, was that the entirety of your statement because you were doing both in Spanish and in English? So I just want to make sure, because was that double time? Okay, when you're doing, because when we're doing a translation, he
Yeah,
gets
I mean-
double time. So I just want to make sure that you can
Correct.
finish your comment.
It happened at the city. I was.
He said his own personal comment, is my understanding,
Yeah, and then I was
in
translating.
Spanish. That was your,
What he just did is just the Spanish of what.
okay.
So
Okay, so I just want to make sure. He hasn't
Can I
spoken
keep-
yet.
Is it,
Please be quiet.
can I keep going then?
Yes. Because that was your statement in
Correct.
Spanish, correct?
Correct. Yes, and this is what I did yesterday, right here at the city council meeting. I did the same thing. I translated, and I was given extra time.
What he just did is the translation of the other comment. He hasn't given his own comment. Everything he said is what he said.
No, it's not. It's not. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's my it's my own
Yes.
comment.
Just the 3 minutes.
No,
No,
I
he is doing his own, okay.
yeah, because I went first.
Please finish your comment. I want to make sure I'm trying to advocate for you and your time right now.
Yes.
So
So,
please finish keep
okay.
going with your comment. I got this.
So when I translate my own comment, how much time do you have?
You get double time, and that's what I'm trying to ensure right now.
Then I got probably 2 more minutes.
Mr.
At-
Delgado,
at-
yes,
at
I'm
the least.
trying to advocate to help you get your time. That's what
Yes.
I'm doing. I'm advocating for your time.
Yeah. So I'll continue in English because
Yes.
the translation, my Spanish comment is gone. So, all right. So
Yeah.
this is what I was saying, that we should all work together before we can have a healthy budget. I've been saying this for a long time. The less money that you overspend on whatever reason, could be legal fees, it could be any other expenditure that you overspend, that favors the teachers, that favors students, special education students, teacher salaries, families. All I'm saying is that let's have a healthy budget. Let's have it. That's an invitation to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please let me know when I may begin. Thank you. So under the district's new practice announced this evening, CUSD moves to further restrict public comments on topics that fall under business operations and facilities. Under item G are placed 9 independent and significant items to include district warrants, a variety of gifts, grants, and donations, and even a full presentation on the development of the 25-26 budget. Do you believe that the community cannot see through this most recent effort to further restrict public comments on these important topics and further decrease transparency? Believe that? Although employee leadership arrived prepared to address the variety of items under item G, we saw the board's decision to restrict transparency coming from miles away. We anticipated this. And to be clear, prior to the evening's procedural change, a member of the public would have been permitted 27 collective minutes in 3-minute increments to address each and every item under letter G. Now, after the district's move to further restrict public comment, a member of the public receives just 3 minutes total to comment on 9 different items contained on the agenda. That's 20 seconds per item.
Can you stop his
20
time?
seconds
Can
to
you stop his
comment on the
time for a
collection of
moment?
district expenditures found in the warrants.
Please stop, sir.
To include. oh,
Stop his
yes.
time for a moment.
Yeah, let's make sure
Okay.
I get all that time back.
No,
Thank you.
there's no time to get back. I had her stop the
Let's
clock.
make- she took a while, didn't she? Yeah.
No.
Yep.
What I'm just going to ensure that you're using your time wisely to speak to one of these items.
Okay, yes, I am.
Otherwise, I'll ask you to move on.
Would you
Okay? And
maybe,
we
why
will
don't
go
you
ahead and she
reread
can-
what I said so that you can hear clearly that everything I spoke about was about
So,
item G?
go ahead and start
Or are
his
you
time
going to
now,
continue
please.
to cut off every speaker in this room? 20 seconds to comment on the collection of district expenditures found in the warrants, to include the district's extraordinary legal expenses associated with 4 outstanding arbitrations, 3 writs to compel arbitration, 2 unfair labor practices with the Public Employment Relations Board, the tort associated with the illegal termination of an IA at Aliso, hearings designed to review the district's unlawful discipline of 2 employees who testified under oath that resulted in the district being found guilty of retaliation and discrimination, and then, of course, the district's effort to defend itself against the continued retaliation and discrimination that the district was directed to cease and desist in 2021 and didn't. A legal effort by the district that has cost the USD approximately $3.5 million. You're going to hear that over and over because it is true. Notice that they have not proven it untrue, have you? 20 seconds also, though, to cover 7 independent grants, gifts, and donations, and 20 seconds to comment on the 25-26 proposed budget that contains over 1,000 data points associated with the district's budget, expenditures, revenues, reserve balances, and on and on. No wonder these meetings are so poorly attended. Perhaps the folks should pan into the room here and see how few people come. They don't come because they so rarely see the benefit of either themselves, or to district students and families that is associated with attending and participating in meetings like these. Let the community prepare for an even more myopic, self-serving, and opaque government structure by you all who made this decision. These are your leaders, Carpinteria.
We are moving on to G1 warrants. The board is asked to approve the warrants for the period of January 10th through January 23rd in the amount of $870,946.25. Warrants are issued once a week on Thursdays. The report format shows check number, check date, payee, brief account description, payment comment, and check amount. Questions? Okay. May I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the warrant as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. G2, gifts, grants, and donations. We have a donation from Roberto Robledo and Maria Clara Garcia to ASB Student Aid for CHS. We're being asked to accept a donation in the amount of $500 to Carp High ASB Student Aid account. May I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve with gratitude.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
2B, donation from Linda Lang to Future Farmers of America in the amount of $50 to CHS FFA. May I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Linda. Donation from Anonymous in memory of Daryl Brown to CHS Baseball Club account. The board is asked to accept the anonymous donation in memory of Daryl Brown of $1,000 to CHS Baseball Club.
I'll move to approve with gratitude. Thank you, Anonymous.
Yes, thank you.
I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have G2D, donation from Eric Kuehler to CMS Music Program. Let's see here, he's donated a set of drums valued at $2,000 to the CHS Music Program with Mr. Pavia. Sorry, middle school.
All right, I'll move to approve with gratitude. Thank you, Eric.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. To E, donation from Rotary Club of Carpinteria to CMS Elementary Music Program. The board is asked to accept the donation from Rotary Club of Carpinteria of several musical instruments valued at $31,000 to Carpinteria Middle and Elementary Schools Music Program. This includes 6 violas, 10 UBS condenser microphones, a baritone saxophone, and 29 replacement instruments for those declared unrepairable. Wow, that is so generous. May I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve. Thank you, Rotary. As always, Rotary's huge
Yeah.
supporter of the music program.
I'll second.
Okay,
Gratitude.
yeah, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Donation from Anonymous through Carpinteria Education Foundation to CHS Avid Field Trips. Board is asked to accept the anonymous donation through Carpinteria Education Foundation of $8,715.82 to Carpinteria High School Avid for field trips. May I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We have a donation from Anonymous of musical instruments to CMS. The board is asked to accept the anonymous donation of musical instruments, including an electric guitar with an amplifier, a violin, a keyboard, and an acoustic guitar to the Carpinteria Middle School Music Program. The estimated value of this donation is approximately $500. May I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And we are now moving on to G3, 2025-26 budget development. We will continue reviewing and discussing the proposed 25-26 budget. Superintendent Diana Rigby and Assistant Superintendent Jason Caff will lead the presentation and development of the 25-26 budget. And also just to mention, that this is after our
January 16th.
January 16th budget study session that we held. So we're building off of that.
Right, thank you. So we'll go ahead and move to the first slide. And you've seen this many times before in our budget presentations, but we always like to remind everybody about our core budgeting principles because these guide us when we're having our discussions and developing the budget for 25-26. Specifically, as we move ahead, we know that we're going to be making some budget reductions. So I want to remind everyone that of our 3 principles is that students and their learning are at the center of our decisions, and that's reflected in decisions we've made in allocating funds to keep our class sizes very low. Elementary is 20-1, middle school 22-1, and high school 24-1, which ranks us as number 1 when we compare ourselves to districts in Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. In addition, we offer a robust a curriculum at both the elementary, secondary levels. We have a wide range of electives for our students at middle school and high school. We have intervention programs for students at the elementary school, and we have mental health supports all through the system, TK to 12, and we provide enormous amount of individualized support through our instructional assistants, especially at the elementary and middle schools. The next core principle is teaching and learning conditions matter for students' success, and this is really reflected in our focus on site-based decision-making and teacher leadership. We allocate funds for department chairs, we allocate funds for and stipends for teachers who are providing professional development. We provide monies for professional development. We've offered early release days and late start Mondays to provide support for teachers in their professional learning communities. Our facilities have been updated. The community was generous enough to support and fund more than $90 million for our updated facilities, new equipment, new technology. And our last, one of our third principle is the resources that we request for program services and activities reflect the core values of academic achievement, respectful community, and continuous improvement. Another core principle is our minimum fund balance, and you'll recall for AB 1200, the minimum is 3%, but we've recognized in our small district that we need to increase that to 10%. That's really our goal for our minimum fund balance. And in our board policy, we indicate that if our fund balance falls below that 10%, we really should develop a plan to recover the fund balance by either looking at new unrestricted revenues, which is not plentiful, or reducing expenditures. And that's what we're doing. That's what we did 2 weeks ago. That's what we're doing tonight. And that's where, as we move forward, that's where we're looking at is reducing expenditures. The next slide just reminds everyone about the minimum that for our district, you have to have at least 3% in your fund balance. And then we've moved to the next slide. Well, this is familiar to you because we shared this at the first interim on November 26th. And there's several things to point out. One is that our June projection for revenue was 32 million. When the actual came in, it was 31.4. So for this interim, we readjusted the revenues and also the expenditures so that our deficit is not 605 at this point, which is the difference between what our revenue was, but it was $396,613. So that's our operating deficit for this year with a 4.31% reserve balance. But the caveat is, included is we do not have any COLA increases in these expenditures. And for our COLA increase, 1% salary increase for our staff is worth $205,000. So that is not included. What is included is that for certificated staff, they have a 4% increase on their salary schedule, and classified staff also has a step increase. We also have longevity, and then our health benefit, the increase was $276,000. So the step increases and the health benefit increases are included in expenditure. What is not is the COLA for the salary increases for either 23-24 or 24-25. And those are the significant expenses. So given this budget background, again, I want to remind you that when we had completed our 23-24 budget, we were in a deficit of $44,848. So we had to remove that from our reserves, from our fund balance. And then we had a difference between our projected revenue and our actual revenue. And then our first interim, our budget variance is $1.1 million. So we're really looking at a $1.6 million deficit that we need to correct as we move forward in developing the 25-26 budget. So that gives us our goal. And so our next steps is to look at those areas that are first outside the classroom that we will reduce for next year to recover the $1.6 million so we can ensure that we have COLA increases for all staff as well as that fund balance. So the next question, or what we take a look at, is what are those fixed costs or the budget drivers that significantly affect your budget development? The first area we've looked at is the declining enrollment. So that you recall that our state and federal money is for categoricals only, Title I and Title II. But when you have declining enrollment, your state and federal money is going to decline. And you heard that with special ed, right? We are a community school or basic aid, so declining enrollment doesn't affect our revenue, because remember, our revenue is generated from the county, and the county is generating from property taxes. However, it does affect staffing. So if you take a look at our enrollment history, you'll see that in 10 years, it's been about 13%. So when you think about enrollment decline, you have to think about reducing your staffing. So the next, no, you're too fast. Okay, that's all right. So the next item we look at is, once we look at enrollment, we look at staffing history, meaning how many FTEs do we have given the enrollment that we are serving. So you'll see that our enrollment has declined, but our FTE has not declined in the same ratio. So we're looking at reducing FTE accordingly to the reduction of enrollment. And you'll recall that several things that drive this. You know, our focus is going back to focusing decisions on student learning. We still want small class sizes, but that is going to be something that we need to consider with these FTE amounts. And then the largest expense in our budget is going to be, of course, staff, because it's our salaries and benefits. That's 80% of our budget. So the next slide reflects another budget driver, and that's really our salaries. So this is the 24-25 scattergram, which indicates where all of our teacher salaries, certificated salaries lie, in that we have a number of steps, meaning how many years you've been with the district. And then we have our classes. So depending on your education, you're placed in either a class 1, 2, ranging 1 to 4, and then your step indicates how many years you've been with the district, as I've stated, and those are the number of staff members at each class and step. So when you look at the scattergram, we're looking at 152 salaries that are reflected, or 152 FTEs reflected in the scattergram. You'll see that at least 40% of our teachers, steps 1 through 10, received that 4% increase this year in their step. And then when you look at the next slide, you'll see that teachers also receive their longevity, and that's 33 teachers receiving their longevity.
Is longevity reflected in this salary?
And the next
diagram?
page, the
Yeah,
next page.
But it's not,
No, this ends at 14, and then if you go to the next page, that's telling you how many teachers are receiving longevity. And then our next slide you've seen before is our history of cost of living increases. So the average COLA increase, cost of living that we have provided for certificated staff, is 2.49%, and for classified is 3.57% COLA. So that's in addition to the step increase. And then the next slide, oh, you're a little bit going back, yeah, is our history of health and welfare increases. So this is another fixed cost or budget driver. And I want to remind everyone that, again, because we provide 100% of our health benefits for our full-time employees, of which 205 employees take advantage of, is that we are ranked, again, with comparable districts in Santa Barbara and Ventura County as one of the top districts providing the highest benefits of 100%. And with that, each year you have increased cost to those benefits, and this year increased $257,000, which we've already paid for and accounted for in the expenditures. But that's a fixed cost when you're developing your budget. Another budget driver or fixed cost is pension increases. So the district provides contributions to both STRS, which is for certificated staff, and PERS, which is for classified staff. And again, you'll see the percent of increase year after year that we're contributing. And that, again, is part of our budget. And then the next item, you heard a little bit from our director, Carolyn Haynes, about the increasing special education costs. And we've already discussed that the revenue has declined, but our expenses have increased. And post-COVID, our expenses have significantly increased, as well as our percentage of enrollment of SPED. 2020 and 2021, 14% of our students were enrolled in SPED, and now we have 18%, whereas the statewide average is only 14%. But you can see the increase of cost in the last 5 years. So we've had an increase. Well, we ask, what contributes to that? We've had an increase of enrollment in special education. We've had an increase of contracted services because teachers, special ed teachers, or mostly the special ed providers of the additional services, speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, they work for agencies rather than being directly hired. We've had an increase of students with emotional disturbances, and so that's an increase in enrollment at private programs such as Casa Pacifica. And then we've had an increase of need for BCBAs, the behavioral technicians. All of those increases have contributed to the increased costs in special ed, and yet our revenue is decreasing.
Well, is that, just to clarify that, has our revenue for sped decreased, or is it just not keeping pace with our
It's
expenditures?
both, but you can see, last year we received $2,398,742. This year we received $2,339,000, whereas in 2022-23 we received $2.6 million. So you can see the revenue has
Okay,
decreased.
That's why you're saying that, okay.
Yeah, but it's both. It's definitely not kept up with the cost, but it's really about,
Yeah,
It sounds like the SPED is funded, a big chunk of it comes from the feds through the state.
yeah.
And the state funds it based on a average daily attendance through the LCFF formula. And because districts, not only our district, but most districts in California, at least on the coast, have declining enrollment. So, which means there's a lower ADA. And so they're cutting the money to the county, and then the county's cutting money to us because the county's enrollment is down, and then our enrollment is down as well. So even though our special ed enrollment is up,
It's not
a double
keyed to
whammy.
special education enrollment, it's keyed to overall enrollment. And that's another one of those things that makes no
a
sense.
double
But
whammy.
therefore, we're having to contribute significantly more
Right.
each year from the general fund to that.
so 5 years ago, we were contributing 4.2 million, and now we're contributing 6.4 million.
Right.
And then the next factor that impacts the budget is our property tax. So it's our revenue. And typically it was 5%. Last 2 years, it's been over 7%. This year, though, it was 5%. So up until this year, now those are all actuals, and then we're projecting out that it will remain at 5%. So now we're moving to what areas would we recommend for, oh, excuse me,
Can we
sure,
go-
sure.
Can we back that?
Yeah.
We're not projecting that. The county is projecting that property tax.
No, the county has told us it's 5.07% this year,
Yeah,
and we've made projections that it's 5%.
under their advisement.
Yes, under their advisement, but they did not give us that projection. We're making the projection.
Based on their advisement.
Well, based on the information I have from them, which said we will not go higher than 5%.
So they've told us that they're not going to give us more than a 5%.
No, they've not said that directly. This is just speaking with the person that allocates our funds, indicated to me when I asked about why did we have 2 years of over 7% and now we're back to 5%. Help me understand that. And she said the 2 years was anomaly, and she is expecting that our revenues will all be at 5% for the next few years.
I'm anxious.
That was
to-
Janelle Williams.
I'm anxious to have that conversation in one of our upcoming meetings with the treasurer we're going to speak to, or the
It's a representative from the
auditor, or the treasurer?
no,
or
he's a
tax
treasurer.
collector, or-
Yeah, he's the treasurer. Excuse me, he is from the tax assessor's office.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, so now we're at our recommended considerations for reductions. And again, as I mentioned, we start away from the classroom, and what we've discussed at the leadership team, because this begins all at the leadership team. This reflects the conversation and discussion of school site principals and district office leaders in terms of keeping the reductions away from the classroom. And that means any programs that are offered outside the classroom. And our expectations is that unless the programs are funded by state or federal funds or grant money, that we will have to consider them, we will have to consider reducing them. So there are programs here that are in our professional services, so that's contracted services. Last year, we spent 5.4. We already reduced it to 3.9, and we're recommending to continue to reduce it by not offering AHA program, Girls Inc., Care Solace, Project Lead the Way. Alice Weissing helps with board minutes. And then field trips, those are elementary field trips in which we are moving them to grant funded. And that is the request to CEF, in which they are seriously considering funding our portion of the field trips. So we still want to provide field trips, but we are recommending that they're not funded from the unrestricted budget. The next area is conferences. We've reduced them significantly, and we recommend that for next year is that we reduce conference attendance by $20,000. The next item is legal fees, and that's $58.30. Last year, and you'll see all the categories. It's general student issues, employment, public agency and governance, employee discipline, PERB, grievances, special ed. And last year, we spent 2 years ago, 1.3. We were able to reduce it to 1.1, and we're recommending $200,000 additional reduction. The next two items are challenging because we really don't want to reduce personnel, but the personnel costs are the largest costs. But we are confident that through attrition, which is retirement or resignation, that we will not be doing any layoffs. We will be able to reduce the instructional assistants, $460,000 with 10 instructional assistants. And then for certificated, we will be able to reduce 4 FTEs, again, through attrition. So that means we won't replace 4 FTEs through the retirements and resignations. And then we are recommending that the elementary GATE program, that we will not have that in place for next year because that is not state-funded any longer. And that is a 1 FTE. That person, however, the particular teacher has been in our district and will continue teaching, just not in the GATE program. And then we historically have provided teachers on a volunteer basis 3 additional professional development days at their salary rate, so that essentially adds 3 more days to their calendar. And we're recommending that we will do that work from now until the end of the year in our early release time. And during the professional development day that we have before school starts and in October next year. So that will, that's a 1.7 at this point.
And our goals.
1.6.
1.6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is basically what we covered at our budget meeting 2 weeks ago.
Yes, and it incorporates the feedback that we received.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to see, I mean, I've been, we read about many other districts locally are actually having reductions in force, basically layoffs. And I'm happy to see that we're not doing that. Whereas it seems like an awful lot of districts are doing that.
We're able to recoup or reduce through attrition. That doesn't mean that there will be some movement, across the schools in terms of there may be a retirement at one particular school, but we may need that particular classroom. So there may be grade level changes at the elementary level, but I think, or across elementary schools, but I think we'll be able to support what our needs are going to be next year.
Okay.
Now, can I just, excuse me, I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention, this is preliminary. So we don't have all the retirements right now today, so, and I think more will come. I mean, we're projecting we will see more retirements.
Yeah, so just recognizing that this is what you've brought forward as proposed reductions. I mean, there's some things that we don't have control over ultimately. But I think this summarizes what we went over and takes into account what we discussed during the study session.
Well, yeah, we met for 2 hours
Yeah.
and discussed this.
We went through this
in
pretty,
detail.
yeah. So it doesn't make it sting any less, but that we're able to at least, find other ways of like accommodating field trips and different things like that. And it's not eliminating conferences, it's just reducing. So.
And we will be able to maintain our relatively low class sizes, meaning that we're not facing going from 20 to 1 in elementary to 27 to 1 as an average. So we still have that core value of keeping our class sizes relatively small, as well as at the secondary level. Because you'll recall the earlier slide about FTE and enrollment, and when you have that reduced enrollment, you really have to reduce your FTEs. And you'll see that both at the middle school and high school, we do have more FTEs than really what the enrollment calls for.
Okay.
I'd just like to point out, one of the, if it's not clear to people, one of the big drivers, the biggest driver here is the fact that we had to adjust our revenues from a 7% to 5%. And that was a surprise, I think, to us when the county came up with their actual property tax revenues.
Yes.
And so that is the big driver that has led to this change in our, budgetary guidelines, and which is very frustrating from, our position, I think.
Yes. Your costs are
To say
going
it
up, but your
mildly,
revenue is not
yes.
increasing the way you need it to increase.
And then just, we've already said it, but just the rate at what the amount of money we're having to pull from the general fund for SPED costs. And so I think whatever we can do to continue service, but bringing positions in-house. There's an aspect of we put notice out, and if we don't get the responses, we don't get the responses, so we have to hire out. But I believe one of the, let's see here. Yeah. I think if we can keep trying to notice for positions to bring them in-house instead of contract, I think that may help a little bit. It may be not much in the grand scheme of things, but
it will significantly help. That's
Yeah.
why you'll see February 1st, you'll see that we will have posted openings for speech and language pathologists, mild, moderate teachers, occupational therapists, physical therapists.
okay.
So we're posting
So we
for
are
all
posting
the
for
contracted
quite-
service.
okay.
Yes. So
Great.
absolutely, that is driving the costs.
Yeah.
That is a huge cost driver.
Okay. Okay, any further clarification about what was presented? This looks like it represents and reflects what we discussed at the study session previously. No action on this item. This was just to continue a review. So that will continue to be built and brought back again at a future meeting.
Yes.
Okay, We are now on to H, Measure U. If you would like to make public comment on H, Measure U, now is your time to come and make public comment. Okay, not seeing any. H1, Measure U, Notice of Completion for Canalino Elementary School Learning Center. The board is asked to approve the completed contract for the Canalino Elementary School Learning Center on April 9th, 2024. The board approved the GMP with McGillivray Construction, Inc. in the amount of $1,473,908.74. The completed construction amount is $1,660,965.10. Pursuant to Civil Code Section 9204, a notice of completion must be filed within 15 days after the completion of work or improvement. The district staff have inspected the project and are satisfied that all work has been completed per the contract documents. To ensure the district has received all preliminary 20-day and stop payment notices per Civil Code Sections 9300 through 9306, retention will be held for no more than 30 days. In accordance with Public Contract Code, Section 7107, retention will be released within 60 days pursuant to Civil Code. Final notice of completion for McGillivray Construction, Inc. in the amount of $1,660,965.10. Any questions from the board on this? Nope. Okay, may I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
And discussion?
Just like to thank them for doing a great job and getting it on schedule. And I'm really happy that we have a library back at a new library at Canalino.
It's absolutely
It's
beautiful.
fantastic. Yeah.
It is absolutely a beautiful, beautiful center for readers and learners.
It is. We had the ribbon cutting ceremony last Thursday? Wednesday. Last week. And it was really great. It was after school, and the after school program kids were able to come be there. We had quite a few community members, families, teachers, and staff. And Julie Soto was beaming. She is very proud of the facility, and it's absolutely incredible, the space that it has in there for small group learning, for group reading, circle time reading. The way the library is designed, kind of like a maze to get lost among the books, as well as the computer lab set up there, and it was very thoughtful. And I'm just going to take this moment to kind of recap some of the statement I made last week to the community. It was just to thank the community for their belief in the importance of this project of Measure U for our kids. There's never an easy it's never an easy ask to ask the community to increase what they pay in property taxes for something like this, but it was important, and the majority of the community spoke up and said, yes, we believe this is much needed, and our kids will thrive, and they are, and that's reflected in the wide array and increase in amazing college admissions we see each year. The students that are going out into the world, even directly from high school, because of the facilities and the access to facilities and classrooms and equipment that they have in their everyday learning from elementary through high school. I know there was a group of us when this kind of started that we thought, gosh, our kids will never actually get to see any of this, and they actually have, and so that's really awesome. Some of us will get a little more life out of it with our kids than others. But I want to thank the community for believing in our students, and for the support that this brought and what this will do for the long term of our community. So, yep. So we are being asked to approve the completed contract. May I get a motion?
I'll move to approve to approve the.
Oh, we have the motion. Oh, we did that. Sorry, that's right.
We were having discussion.
We were having discussion. Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Future agenda items. I, public comment.
Alrighty, at minute 1:48:30 of the January 14th board meeting, Jamie Dimon stated that there are many possible reasons why people leave the district. Ms. Dimon is correct. It is possible that people leave the district for many reasons. For this reason, union leadership requests that the following question be placed on future agendas. Why are so many employees leaving CUSD? Just because it's possible that people leave for many reasons, as Ms. Dimon said, does very, very little to clarify why so many people have specifically fled CUSD in the last 12 months. Again, approximately 70 employees to be exact. The following reasons are not mere connotations for the district staffing problems, as Ms. Dimon suggested. Here are the very clear reasons employees have shared with their colleagues and with leadership. Employees have left because the administrative culture fostered by Ms. Rigby is toxic, quote, toxic. They leave because employees feel isolated, unsupported, and under attack. They leave because professionals cannot safely share their concerns and experiences, and in turn cannot provide the service they are committed to provide students and families. They leave because they have watched and are aware that the district officials before us have invested no less than $3.5 million trying to silence the employees' elected representatives. $2 million already on the books, as confirmed by Ms. Rigby this evening, and another $1.5 million in debts to be paid due to recent legal decisions. That's their $3.5 million right there. They leave because instructional programs are understaffed, their schools are under-resourced, and admin's answer is to give themselves 2 salary increases and then limit public comments at meetings like these. They leave because their experience is not respected or valued in the decision-making process. They leave because they have not received any salary increase in 19 months while the cost of living has increased 20 to 23% in the last 2 years. They leave because they have watched new employees get hired with hiring bonuses at higher rates of pay than those who have worked in the district for 15, 20, and 25 years. And they leave because they have watched Superintendent Rigby dismantle standardized safety practices in the district so that senior management can shift accountability from their shoulders to those who have the least ability to influence the district's safety practices as a whole. So please, board members, save us your hypothetical understanding of why employees leave their places of employment. For the employees we represent, we are not dealing in your imaginary hypothetical scenarios. We are dealing with the very real reasons why over just last year, 70 employees left CUSD, and why this trend is projected to continue because the reasons shared are not being improved upon. Thank you.
So this speaker continues to mislead the public. If I would recommend refer everyone to the June 5th, 2024 board meeting and also the July 11th, 2023 board meetings to reference the misrepresented managerial salary increases, which are not as described by the previous speaker.
Were there not 2?
Please do not speak from the back of the room.
The speaker has alluded to offers made previously between the bargaining unit and the district, which were actually a better offer than those offered to than what was given to administration. And if that's news to our staff, then they should take that up with their union representatives, because an offer was made that was quite generous and it was turned down by the union.
You can leave or you can remain silent. This is not your opportunity. No, this is not your opportunity to speak. This is board comment.
Thank you.
Okay. So for future agenda items, we have continued, there's a typo. It should say 2025-2026 budget development. And then the LCAP mid-year update report. And then I believe we will eventually, is that pool presentation that was pulled, is that just kind of for now off?
They haven't given us another date.
Okay, there's no update.
It'll be in the future.
Okay. Okay. Board calendar, is there anything we need to note? Monica? No. And board announcements. Anybody? Well, congratulations to CHS water polo girls. It was senior night tonight. Thank you to all the girls for an awesome season. The young women, they played really well, and it was great to be part of the team this year.
Off the CIF, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe first round is Tuesday next week,
Tuesday.
week from today.
We'll find out tomorrow.
Thursday. No, Saturday.
Saturday, okay.
Okay.
Will it be a home meet?
No, they changed the rules.
They
So
did.
winning, so we went 8-0 in league, undefeated, but that does not give you a automatic home
What does it?
opener anymore with the new system. So we'll find out.
All right.
Well, congratulations to girls water polo, and especially to the seniors. And then I just also want to reiterate to the community that there is information for those of you who are looking for it on how to respond, what to do if you have concerns over any of the current executive orders and how that will affect the community. CCP is an amazing resource, and there are other leaders in town that have also great opportunities and resources to help our any of our community members who are concerned over the recent executive orders as it relates to immigration. So I just want to say we will do what we are tasked to do, and we know our community will step up to the plate. So thank you. We are adjourned.